Hello, and welcome back to Bedtime Stories with Vice Vice Baby, where we will continue Betrothed. Chapter 2. When Nadia woke up, it must have been 2 o'clock. It was beginning to get light. A watchman was tapping somewhere far away. She was not sleepy, and her bed felt very soft and uncomfortable. Nadia sat up in her bed and fell to thinking as she had done every night in May. Her thoughts were the same as they had been the night before, useless, persistent thoughts of how Andrei Andreevich had begun courting her and had made her an offer, how she had accepted him and then little by little had come to appreciate the kindly, intelligent man. But for some reason, now, when there was hardly a month left before the wedding, she began to feel dread and uneasiness, as though something vague and oppressive were before her. Tick-tock. The watchman tapped lazily. Tick-tock. Through the big, old-fashioned window, she could see the garden, and at a little distant bushes of lilac, in full flower, drowsy and lifeless from the cold, and a thick white mist was floating softly up to the lilac, trying to cover it. Drowsy rooks were cawing in the faraway trees. My God, why is my heart so heavy? Perhaps every girl felt the same before her wedding. There was no knowing. Or was it Sasha's influence? But for several years past, Sasha had been repeating the same thing, like a copybook, and when he talked, he seemed naive and queer. But why was it she could not get Sasha out of her head? Why was it? The watchman left off tapping for a long while. The birds were twittering under the windows, and the mist had disappeared from the garden. Everything was lighted up by the spring sunshine as by a smile. Soon, the whole garden, warm and caressed by the sun, returned to life, and dewdrops like diamonds glittered on the leaves, and the old neglected garden on that morning looked young and gaily decked. He was already awake. Sasha's husky cough began. Nadia could hear them below, setting the samovar and moving the chairs. The hours passed slowly. Nadia had been up and walking about the garden for a long while, and still the morning dragged on. At last, Nina Ivanovna appeared with a tear-stained face, carrying a glass of mineral water. She was interested in spiritualism and homeopathy, read a great deal, was fond of talking of the doubts to which she was subject, and, to Nadia, it seemed as though there were a deep, mysterious significance in all that. Now, Nadia kissed her mother and walked beside her. "What have you been crying about, Mother?" she asked. "Last night I was reading a story in which there was an old man and his daughter. The old man is in some office and his chief falls in love with his daughter. I have not finished it, but there was a passage which made it hard to keep from tears," said Nina Ivanovna, and she sipped at her glass. "I thought of it this morning and shed tears again." "I have been so depressed all these days," said Nadia after a pause. "Why is it I don't sleep at night?" "I don't know, dear. When I can't sleep, I shut my eyes very tightly, like this, and picture to myself Anna Karenina moving about and talking, or something historical from the ancient world." Nadia felt that her mother did not understand her and was incapable of understanding. She felt this for the first time in her life, and it positively frightened her. It made her want to hide herself, and she went away to her own room. At 2 o'clock, they sat down to dinner. It was Wednesday, a fast day, and so vegetable soup and bream with boiled grain were set before Granny. To tease Granny, Sasha ate his meat soup as well as the vegetable soup. He was making jokes all through dinner time, but his jests were labored and invariably with a moral bearing, and the effect was not at all amusing when, before making some witty remark, he raised his very long, thin, deathly-looking fingers, and when one remembered that he was very ill and would probably not be much longer in this world, one felt sorry for him and ready to weep. After dinner, Granny went off to her own room to lie down. Nina Ivanovna played on the piano for a while, and then she too went away. "Oh, dear Nadia," Sasha began his usual afternoon conversation. "If only you would listen to me! If only you would!" She was sitting far back in an old-fashioned armchair with her eyes shut, while he paced slowly about the room from corner to corner. "If only you would go to the university," he said. "Only enlightened and holy people are interesting. It's only they who are wanted. The more of such people there are, the sooner the kingdom of God will come on earth. Of your town, then, not one stone will be left. Everything will be blown up from the foundations. Everything will be changed as though by magic, and then there will be immense, magnificent houses here, wonderful gardens, marvelous fountains, remarkable people. But that's not what matters most. What matters most is that the crowd, in our sense of the world, in the sense in which it exists now, that evil will not exist then, because every man will believe and every man will know what he is living for, and no one will seek moral support in the crowd. Dear Nadia, darling girl, go away. Show them all that you are sick of this stagnant, gray, sinful life. Prove it to yourself at least." "I can't, Sasha. I'm going to be married." "Oh, nonsense. What's it for?" They went out into the garden and walked up and down a little. "And however that may be, my dear girl, you must think, you must realize how unclean, how immoral this idle life of yours is," Sasha went on. "Do you understand that if, for instance, you and your mother and your grandmother do nothing, it means that someone else is working for you. You are eating up someone else's life. And is that clean? Isn't it filthy?" Nadia wanted to say, yes, that is true. She wanted to say that she understood, but tears came into her eyes. Her spirits drooped, and shrinking to herself, she went off to her room. Towards evening, Andrei Andreevich arrived and as usual played on the fiddle for a long time. He was not given too much talk as a rule, and was fond of the fiddle, perhaps because one could be silent while playing. At 11 o'clock, when he was about to go home and had put on his greatcoat, he embraced Nadia and began greedily kissing her face, her shoulders, and her hands. "My dear, my sweet, my charmer," he muttered. "Oh, how happy I am! I am beside myself with rapture." And it seemed to her as though she had heard that long, long ago, or had read it somewhere, in some old tattered novel thrown away long ago. In the dining room, Sasha was sitting at the table drinking tea, with the saucer poised on his 5 long fingers. Granny was laying out patience. Nina Ivanovna was reading. The flame crackled in the icon lamp, and everything, it seemed, was quiet and going well. Nadia said good night, went upstairs to her room, got into bed, and fell asleep at once. But just as on the night before, almost before it was light, she woke up. She was not sleepy. There was an uneasy, oppressive feeling in her heart. She sat up with her head on her knees and thought of her fiancé and her marriage. She, for some reason, remembered that her mother had not loved her father and now had nothing, and lived in complete dependence of her mother-in-law, Granny. And, however much Nadia pondered, she could not imagine why she had hitherto seen in her mother something special and exceptional, how it was she had not noticed that she was a simple, ordinary, unhappy woman. And Sasha downstairs was not asleep. She could hear him coughing. He's a queer, naive man, thought Nadia, and in all his dreams, in all those marvelous gardens and wonderful fountains, one felt there was something absurd. But for some reason, in his naivety, in this very absurdity, there was something so beautiful that as soon as she thought of the possibility of going to the university, it sent a cold thrill through her heart and her bosom and flooded them with joy and rapture. But better not think, she whispered. I must not think of it. Tick tock, tapped the watchman somewhere far away. Tick tock, tick tock. Thank you for tuning into this episode of Bedtime Stories with Vice Vice Baby. I hope you all have a good night and sweet dreams.